Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. My name is Adamantium, and welcome to this edition of AAU TZM Podcasts. For those of you listening to this on YouTube right now, my podcasts also exist on talkshoe.com. You'll find a link to the call series page in the video description of this of the video that you're watching right now. Also, another announcement coming up hot on our heels now is for March 10th is going to be this year's Z-Day event. I myself am going to be giving a presentation for the London event, which I have entitled Transitional Thinking. So I hope everyone out there is also gearing up for their own Z-Day events. If you're going to be holding one, we're going to be opening up for submissions for other events on February 3rd. So if you're going to be planning an event, then make sure you contact the official website starting then to basically register your event. But yeah, basically, if you'd like to book tickets for the London event, the official website to purchase your tickets will be on zday2012.eventbrite.com, and that will be for the London event that's being held at the Friends Meeting House in Euston. So that will be a very, very interesting event. Even though the program's 9 hours long, but even if you can't attend, there will certainly be a Ustream feed of the entire event. So I will be sending out a link to as many places that I can of advertising that. So that's Z-Day that's coming up then. So as for the show right now, we'll jump into this current show, and I'm very pleased to have on the line Michael of Elmet to come and talk about critical thinking. So if you'd like to say hello, Michael.
Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I mean, one thing just to set the scene for the listeners, I first met you at the Out of the Ordinary festival in Hailsham last year, and there you gave a very good presentation about critical thinking. So if you'd just like to introduce yourself to the listeners and just give a insight into the sort of stuff that you do.
Yeah, sure. That's true. I gave a presentation on the Trivium back, I think it was last August, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. At the U2 festival, which is an interest of mine. Well, basically for the last number of years, up until nearly 3 years ago now, I was working on and off as a teacher, teaching English, media studies, drama, literature, and this was really a kind of natural progression for me from my early days. A love of literature led me to do a degree in it, which, as I'm sure you can appreciate, necessitates a fair amount of critical thinking, of analysis, textual analysis, and simply making sense of the work of others, of the writings of others. And so once I'd left, I kind of left the education game, like I say, 3 years ago, because at that time I was deeply engrossed. In fact, some would say I still am, but just deeply engrossed by the whole free man movement. And funnily enough, the first step in that absorption came with the original Zeitgeist film. So there is a connection here for the listeners. Okay. And one of the things in there, well, there are a number of strands, of course, but the strand about religion was a very interesting one. The explanation, essentially, that the cosmos, as we see it, is in fact represented through the myths and the stories that we have of the various gods based around the world. And there's also, of course, the other strand in there is about the financial system that we're all currently labouring under, One that, as far as I can see, is a system that has been created specifically to enslave us, albeit without perhaps our consciousness, our conscious awareness of that. So really, it's been a journey in an awakening of consciousness. And one of the things I always took on as a teacher was that the best teachers are those who are actually applying critical thinking to what they're teaching. They've got some kind of philosophy behind their approach to it all. And with the media studies, for instance, and the literature, we're actually getting into the nuts and bolts of communication and how communication is used to influence, to persuade, to argue, and to sell us things, So just to go back to the zeitgeist thing, once I woke up to an understanding of just how the financial system works, that led me into questioning a variety of things, including the mortgage that I was paying at the time, a mortgage that I'd had on a modest terraced house in Nottingham, and one which I'd, because I came to the realization, I kind of knew it all along, but for the first time I really got the proof, and with the internet, of course, I was now able to tap into the sources of the information and explore it for myself. So that began quite a little journey with me taking on a number of corporations, including City Council, the Bradford and Bingley, DVLA was another issue that came up, and our right to travel. So all of this, you began at the start by saying that we may well go off at tangents, and that is quite true, because it's the nature of this. It's the nature of the interconnectedness of everything.
Absolutely.
If you look into the work, say, of David Talbot and Nassim Haramein, and we're talking about the unified field theory. This reality, what we regard as reality, is certainly not how it appears to us. So, in essence, I would say I'm a researcher and a kind of activist, because really, if you consider just for a moment how pernicious and how all-pervasive the international banking system is, I think anyone who's actually actively engaged in challenging these various corporations and these banks and money lenders who are coming after them alleging debts, anyone who's challenging that and standing up to them is an activist. I firmly believe that, and I think they're doing great work, because the sooner this system comes crashing down, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, it's one of the things that Gary Yourofsky said, is that he said, I'm not a capitalist, not a communist, not an anarchist or anything like that. I'm an activist. The root word being active. And
precisely, yeah, taking action. It's all very well for people to sit on the internet, on various forums and what have you, and dwell on these issues and watch what other people are doing. But really, it's the case, as always, if you learn something, as Gandhi said, you've got to be the change that you wish to see in the world. So there's no point in me sitting on my arse and saying, well, the banking system's fucked, and people have got to understand, and just talking about it. I've always taken the view that rather than just talk the talk, you've got to be prepared to walk the walk. Absolutely. Ultimately, it's cost me, but it's given, because ultimately I was, put it this way, the mortgage game, this triggered off a whole series of courtroom dramas, and which carried on for some over a year and a half, basically.
Yeah.
But ultimately ended in fact, I think I've given you the reference to it. There's a film out there called The Mortgage Chronicles. It's an ever-burgeoning documentary which highlights my attempt to get to the heart of the matter and to challenge the actual, the banking behind it. And it's been a very, very interesting time. So ultimately, I lost the house unlawfully, as it turned out, through the police intervened. They broke in with the bailiffs. We were unlawfully, we were arrested, kidnapped, and falsely imprisoned. and released some 9 hours later to find that the house had been tinned up and we were being denied access. There was a security guard inside. And, this was my house of some 14 years. And whilst I'd always been prepared to take that risk, do you know what I mean? I always thought, well, if it is a bit of a casino going into the court and playing this game. But ultimately I thought, well, if I don't do it, who is going to do it?
Exactly.
And I was in a position where, single guy without, it would be, if it was someone with a wife and children, it would be a lot harder to engage in this. And I had a friend with me, Remy, who was living there as a tenant. I gave him a lifetime tenancy as well. You see, this is another issue that is ongoing.
Yeah.
So this battle against the Bradford and Bingley is by no means over yet. We're looking now to take it into independent arbitration.
Yeah.
So from what I can see, and my experience is now fairly extensive, the courts, Her Majesty's Court Service, consistently refuse to provide the people with the remedies that they are lawfully entitled to. In other words, the judges are always finding in favour of the banks.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, when you said about just a moment ago about the unlawful arrest, it's striking me that the arrests that happen in these kind of situations, but also with what's happening in the occupier camps or everything like that, the arrests are not happening specifically because anything has done anything wrong. They just want you out of the way so they can do something. And in your case, it was they wanted you out of the way so they could, so they could get at your home.
Well, you see, they'd had enough. The films will explain it, really. I don't need to go into it now, but the bailiff had come round on, I think it was six, possibly 7 occasions trying to get possession of the house. And I'd refused to consent to it all along, because as far as I was concerned, the county court had failed to provide me with a competent jurisdiction. So I took the view that in my heart and in my head, I knew what was right, and therefore there was no way I was going to give the house over.
Exactly, because that's the thing. It's, we are governed by consent, and you do not consent to their authority. Hence, they have no authority. Yeah,
precisely. And let's face it, who are we talking about here? They're just, as a friend, as Remy often says, and he's the guy who's also in the film. He's, who are these guys? It's just, he in fact said to the judge on one occasion when he was, there was a trial basically to send me to prison for the bank applied at the court to send me to prison for contempt. The contempt was, the fact that I had not given up the house to the bailiffs. So I was in contradiction of a court order saying that I had to do that. One of the things about this critical thinking is that, it is important. And we have these amazing brains that that are often, for various reasons underused.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is, okay, people can be intellectual and they can have a good understanding of things, but as I said before, really, unless you put it into action, then it's not really anything other than bookish knowledge.
Exactly.
And you read things, you come to some kind of understanding of it, you follow a logical process of sifting through the information.